Gaia visits her aunt in France.
Hello! Last week I discovered some interesting things about the European Union with my friend Luca. I know that the EU has been around for a while and that France was a founding member. But how did that all happen?
Well, in order to understand that, we have to go back to 1945. In 1945, the war had just ended. It was the second of two horrible world wars with a lot of death and destruction. Now, European leaders wanted to create lasting peace and cooperation between former enemies. Therefore, in 1950, French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman wrote the Schuman Declaration. In this text, he proposed a linkage of European coal and steel industries. This way, no country could start producing weapons without the others knowing. This led to the creation of the European Coal and Steel Community in 1951. The 6 founding members were Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. In 1957, the Treaty of Rome created the European Economic Community, or EEC. It was a free trade zone across all industries between the 6 founding members. In the 60s, EEC countries agreed to joint control over food production, the so-called Common Agricultural Policy. It was meant to make sure that the EEC grows enough food for its needs and that farmers earn well through fixed prices. The unwanted side effect was overproduction. There were literal mountains of unused butter throughout the EEC. In 1973, the EEC grew for the first time. Denmark, Ireland, and the United Kingdom joined the community. The last right-wing dictatorships in Europe came to an end with the overthrow of the Salazar regime in Portugal in 1974 and the death of General Franco in Spain in 1975. 1979 brought the first European Parliament elections. The citizens elected the parliament directly, thereby giving it more influence. In 1981, Greece became the 10th member of the EEC. As the community grew, it evolved. Belgium, France, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and West Germany signed the Schengen Agreement in 1985. It started the process of removing border controls and allowing the free movement of people. The EEC also developed their public image. They picked a flag, a motto, United in Diversity, and an anthem. Spain and Portugal joined the EEC in 1986. In the same year, the Single European Act was signed. It created the single market. In 1987, the EEC launched the Erasmus program. This program funds university students who want to study in another European country for up to 1 year. The 80s were shaped by a big event, the collapse of communism in Central and Eastern Europe. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 is probably the most well-known symbol for this. In 1992, the Maastricht Treaty was signed. It created the European Union as we know it today. Through this treaty, all citizens of member states gained the European citizenship. It also established a common foreign and security policy and expanded the European Parliament's power. On top of that, the treaty introduced the environment as an official field of action for the EU. Then, in 1993, the single market was completed with the 4 freedoms. They are free movement of goods, services, people, and money. Austria, Finland, and Sweden joined the EU in 1995. In 2001, the world was shocked by the 9/11 terror attacks. In light of this, EU countries began to work together more closely to fight crime. In 2002, the euro became the new currency for Europeans in 12 countries. During the following decade, more countries adopted the euro. 10 new countries joined the EU in 2004. 3 years later, Bulgaria and Romania followed. In the same year, 2007, the Treaty of Lisbon was signed. It provided the EU with modern institutions and more efficient and transparent working methods. The treaty also includes binding rules on human rights. In the end of the decade, the world was hit by a global financial crisis. Many businesses closed and many people lost their jobs. In 2012, the European Union was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize because of its contributions to peace, democracy, and human rights in Europe. Croatia became the 28th member to enter the EU in 2013. Since 2015, many asylum seekers have come to the EU because of wars and poverty in their home countries. The EU is still struggling to find a common process for receiving and settling asylum seekers arriving at its external borders. In June 2016, the United Kingdom let its citizens vote on whether they wanted to leave the European Union. The result was that 52% of British people voted to leave. After 4 years, this so-called Brexit finally happened on January 31, 2020. Right now, the EU and the United Kingdom are talking about their future relationship. Climate change is still high on the agenda, and EU leaders agreed to reduce harmful emissions. So you see, Gaia, the EU has had a long history.
Yes, wow, this is what I remember. The EU as it is today was created through the Treaty of Maastricht in 1992. That was after the collapse of communism in the 80s. The first steps toward the EU were already taken in 1951, when the European Coal and Steel Community was founded. There were 6 founding members.
It's great that you remember all of that, but don't forget the euro. It was introduced as a common currency in 12 European countries in 2002.
Yes, you're right. Thank you for telling me all of this. I wonder what will happen with the EU in the future.